Alright, so let's talk about, in today's subject, women's rights and the importance of women into that. What's your views on how women have been oppressed throughout the recent years, especially throughout media and in the workplace?
In terms of media, I don't know. I think like things like, for example, people like Kim Kardashian. Like, I'm not a fan of her stuff. Don't watch her. But where she's like had a sex tape and done this and then done that, people, I think they pay too much attention to what she's doing on like her sexual life. Where I think things like sex and porn should stay in the adult industry. There is an adult porn industry, and that sort of thing should stay there, and it shouldn't be in the magazines, online, on Instagram for younger people to see, for everyone to talk about and look. So things like that. And obviously, if a man sleeps around, he's a player. This, that. People like her or other people that sleep around or are open about it, they're seen as slag, seen as whores. Do you know what I mean? So it's not good.
To be honest, it kind of works both ways. So like, a man's basically a whore if he's smashing like 10 yaks and shit, for no reason and shit. But I'm just saying, they made like, they kind of, media kind of just shifted a lot of things onto gender as of recent, but they've done it like for quite a long time, like the past 10 years. So just shifted it like shit's just getting overdone and shit. I'm just saying, like, feminism is just getting to like, it was calm, innit? It still is, yeah, but people are just like certain women are just like doing it for no reason, kind of thing. Like, they don't actually know what like the importance of a woman.
As you were saying about the whole Kim Kardashian situation, I think it's made, the media has portrayed sex as a tool, and and they've used women as the product to market that tool.
Sex sales.
That sex, or of sex, innit? Do you know what I'm saying? So I think using people like Kim Kardashian and the Blac Chynas and the Amber Roses and all the people on the reality TV that, you know, are open about these things, and you've got the people sleeping with the same people in similar circles, you've got all the ratchets and all that stuff like that. All of that's using basically, I think the way it's affected women is women have seen that and associated these type of women as successful women. So what tends to happen is, in my opinion, is because they characterize that person with success, they become, or they aim or strive to be like those people, because that's what they believe society regards as a successful woman. You don't get much examples like Michelle Obama showing her levels of success and saying this is an example of a successful woman. It just goes into, you know, Kim Kardashian's successful. People that are living good lives don't tend to be put into the forefront, like this person's married, look how good they are. They only kind of get thrusted in once things start going wrong, and then you see all the successful single people living their best life and all of that. So they're like, you know what, I'm gonna get what I need to get by any means necessary. We're personally doing what I want them to do for me to get to where I want to get to. I'm not giving it up, and I'm not even entertaining it. So therefore, it kind of fits into the narrative of the whole nature, even though in their minds it might just be, I'm getting to it, and if you're not giving me what I want, I'm not giving you what you want in it. I'm not giving the exchange, because I want to be successful, I want to move forward, I want a career, I want money, and if you can't give that for me, I ain't involved. And you know, the perspective of the other party might be that that's a whole behaviour or whatever it is. So that's what I think.
And that's interesting. Why do you think that a woman could sleep with 10 men and she's seen as a slag, and a man sleeps with 10 women and he's seen as a player, as a G? Why is that? Where do you think that comes from?
I think it's kind of primitive. Do you know what I mean? I think I don't know if that's the right word, but in the past where the woman used to stay home, cook, clean, and look after the children, things have changed now completely. And we're still, I think, with technology and the world's evolving quite quickly, and people aren't, like, it's in our DNA, it's in our blood. The men go out and hunt, the women stay at home, and it's all changing quite quickly. So maybe in the future it will be a thing where people are more, women and men are a bit more equal, but I still think we're coming out of that phase, do you know what I mean? And people are just getting used to it. And also, following what he said earlier about the feminism, I think when people talk about feminism, I think the whole idea of feminism initially was sort of to not have the woman as oppressed as she was, but not to have her empowered. And then you get the extreme feminists who will be like, oh no, women are everything, men are shit. And I disagree with that sort of thing, but I understand the thing about women not being suppressed, not being the one under and sort of having a voice. But it doesn't need to get to a point where it's like, yeah, women are powerful, we're everything. And I don't think it needs to be stuck in people's face as much as it is sometimes with the extreme feminists. Yeah.
To a point, they are everything, just like Mother Earth. Like Earth is like God, basically. So, women are important at the end of the day, but people just, not even only women, it's men as well. Like people just like take things to a different level that they don't really need to with certain things, and they just vocalize it to a point where it's just like annoying.
Exactly. Like there's extremists of everything. Like everyone can go to extreme everything. That includes feminism, that includes religion. That's just everything. So yeah.
You know what I think it is? Going back to what you said about the primitive thing, I think that's where it comes from. Because if you look at the makeup of a man in it, when it comes to producing a new life, yeah, like, one second, someone building something. This is turbulence, but in terms of creating, a male can, spread his seed as many different times in a year. Literally, if he possessed it in him, he could have 365 years by the next year. Do you get what I'm saying? If every single day he was going ham, he could do that. Whereas a woman can only be pregnant once within that cycle, go through that cycle, have to rest. When he comes back together, then you have another baby. In the early beginning, when the population wasn't like this, I think this was our terms of survival, because men would have to breed multiple different women so that you would have a spurt of a generation. Because if you're gonna have to put in work, it's like you see lions. You see the male lion, right? He will sleep with multiple female lions. But you don't see many female lions sleeping with bare different male lions. You rarely see that. You won't see her sleeping with this lion and then sleeping with that lion. You see the lion do that. It's literally in its nature. It will sleep with the lion, and they'll have the little beef or whatever, and then it will sleep with it. And then twos, he'll move literally while they're sitting right next to each other and go do the. Do you know what I'm saying? So it's like the law of nature, isn't it? It's not even something that. But as we progress as intelligent life forms, that's where the morality of it starts to become comes into question. So now we're taking it away from what we do naturally to what morally is okay. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, is it okay as a man, because you're getting emotions involved, if a woman's giving 100% to you and you're just like, nah, I'm gonna give you 15, this thing over there is 10%, and do you know what I'm saying? Morally, you're not giving what you're receiving, and that's where the lines about the whole thing start to get a bit blurred now, because we're past the stage where we're moving autonomously and we're actually thinking about our actions and progressing as a species and as people, as a human race in that way. That's why the question has started to come up a lot more, I think.
But is it okay to compare ourselves to animals in terms of the kingdom? Is a woman not more intelligent and more delicate than a female lion in terms of her being and her presence? Is it okay in terms of justifying a male lion sleeping with multiple lions? Is that okay to justify, or is there any connection to a man doing that?
I didn't justify it by saying it's okay.
Or the comparison made.
That's where it probably stemmed from, the original nature of man. Do you know what I'm saying? As you evolve, things change. For instance, we might have had webbed feet in the beginning when we was fishing and we had to go in the sea all the time. We might have to be great swimmers. But as time evolved and we're eating different sources of... This is an example. I'm not saying we had webbed feet. Do you know what I'm saying? I don't know.
I think the good point that you made is as intelligent beings.
Yeah, as you evolve.
Not as animals, not as just beings living, surviving. Or I have to be the dominant guy. I have to sleep with as many women as possible.
But that's like Neanderthal way of thinking. That if you've been doing something wrong for ages and then a light bulb switches on and you go, okay, well, this is it, because we're humans. That's what sets us apart from the animals. So I'm saying, like, we basically have evolved to the point past where we're just moving autonomously as animals. When we've actually formulate thought and we formulate things, we have a more of a definition of what right and wrong is, whereas an animal doesn't think what it's doing is right or wrong. It just does. Do you get what I'm saying? We determine what right and wrong is. Do you get what I'm saying? So where we start going down the rabbit hole of what's right, what's wrong, what's acceptable, what's not acceptable, what impedes on somebody and what doesn't, that's when so it's not a comparison between animals and humans. Not saying that humans are like animals. No, we were like animals at one point, but we've evolved past that point to actually formulate thought. So therefore, a woman maybe in the past, whereas a man we might have behaved more animalistically. Now we're in the age of the gentleman, where you're supposed to carry yourself in a certain way, in a more appropriate manner for the environment and circumstances that we live in.
What do you feel about women being oppressed in the workplace and not having prominent roles, dominant roles as maybe males have?
I think with that there's a lot to consider, like, in answering that question. I think one of them that I can say is that women have maternity leave if they get pregnant, and a lot of companies on the financial side of it think of that because they're thinking, I'm still going to have to pay this person if they leave for this amount of time and find someone else in the meantime. So I think even though it might seem unfair, you can kind of understand where some businesses are coming from on a financial and convenient scale. So yeah, that's all I can say on that. I don't know more than that, really.
To be honest, I think if a woman has like more skill than a male in the role, then obviously she should be treated the same way, innit? But she should have been treated the same way from the start, innit? It shouldn't be just because of the skill, like not just because she's like a woman. She shouldn't be treated the same way as a male in the same role. So from my point of view, I think in terms of skill and just like intelligence and communication, all the rest that's important to a role. If women are not to be like treated the same way, then certain businesses will fail because of that. And that's what people are just like getting onto. And they should have like clocked the time ago really, because like it was like, yeah, I think that's it.
I think it's back to evolution. We've evolved, isn't it? Because before, there was a time when women was rarely even in the workplace. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, you know, women weren't even in the workplace until, what was it,
Less
World
than
War II?
100 years ago.
After
Second World War, isn't it? Yeah, and then after that they started working and things like that, you know. So I think as evolution, like, think about it, even in the workplace, up until how many years until this whole Me Too movement started blowing so many things up, there were certain actions in the workplace that were acceptable or deemed acceptable or normal before that are deemed inappropriate and unacceptable now. So everything's evolution. I'm sure that we'll get to a point where everything's equal and it's based on skill and talent and dedication to the actual work and experience, and those things would factor in for the women the same way it factors in for their male counterparts. I think at the moment we're just in a growing phase, so that's where you get all of these sexual harassment situations, because situations that were deemed normal have now been, because of the media and the way that the world works now, technology has now been pushed to the forefront, and people that didn't have a voice, i.e. women, now have voices and are able to explain their experience. And morally, it is wrong to negate anybody's experience, whether you deem your actions right or wrong. So that's why now that these people have an outlet to say what they've experienced, it's now up for opinion. Whereas before, if there was no platform that they could say their experience, there would be no opinion to go along with it. We might not even had this conversation because it would just been one of those hush-hush things that kept going on in the workplace that nobody ever spoke about, because there was no platform and no voice. There was no woman in the place where she can speak her truth and not be afraid of the consequences of losing the job or losing or the backlash of going against the male in the workplace that happened to be a supervisor or her boss that might have been treating her unfairly when it came to the promotion. She wouldn't have had, because people would have just been like, well, what are you complaining about? Like, but now you can actually look at the evidence and say, well, I've been here for 15 years. I've been putting in more work, more numbers in the books than every other person in this thing. There's a platform to have that conversation.
Yeah.
It can't just be stood under the car and shut up.
I think another point as well is the education that people are receiving at the moment. So we've got the new generations being educated about women and the sort of culture that's coming up. Things are changing, there's new generations. And I think the more people are educated about like being equal in a workplace, the more things will change in the future.
What about domestic violence? How do you feel about, just the last thing in terms of domestic violence being perpetrated, that's the male on female and not female on male, etc., etc. What's your views on domestic violence? What about the genuine cases where women have been assaulted?
I think women are more violent than men, cuz. I actually do. I think women, especially when it comes to males and females, women are more...
Wait. You can...
Hold on, no,
he
before
was
you interrupt.
Me a
Okay,
question.
cool.
Thank you. What were you saying?
Just in terms of what's your views on domestic violence, and women having to go through so many stories and accounts of women being mistreated and actually being physically abused and emotionally abused.
Yeah, I think with a lot of both ways, people should try and speak up, and if they see that their family or their friend is in a situation where they're being psychologically, emotionally or physically abused by someone, they should say something about it. Both ways, whether it's a man or a woman, because it does go both ways. So
I think that the males should just like chill in it, and the women, because like I'm hearing people like even some of my people in my certain people in my family have been like set up and shit because of women there, and like it just doesn't like people like the media like just painting pictures and shit, just making shit like not what it actually is. Like they're making people, like certain people, the bad guy. Like mostly it's the men, innit? And even in like, this is gonna be a bit off topic, but even in like other platforms of media and like animation and shit, you got like the male being the weaker person in the family, like the predators and shit, and after like people are thinking like, oh yeah, so the women have no advantages and shit, but the women are supposed to do what they can do best, and the men are supposed to do what they can do best, because a man can't do what a woman can do, innit?
Definitely, like carry a baby for 9 months.
And a woman can't do what a man can, certain things what a man can do.
What was the new question, bro?
Just in terms of domestic violence and women going through so many accounts of domestic violence and men being perpetrators of that, and how can we tackle that, and what's your views on that?
Okay. I think domestic violence is wrong. Like I said, it's now the platform that things have become visible, so people are more aware, and not even that more aware that it goes on, but it's now more frowned upon. And I think that any kind of physical or mental abuse in a relationship is just foul, and it happens on both ends. But because women now have a voice, it's been and women tend to be seen as the weaker physically, and also a lot of the time emotionally. They tend to be like, they're more precious and softer. So if you look at a male and a female in a relationship, you rarely think, oh, the woman's being abusive to the male. You usually think, oh, if the guy's more, do you know what I'm saying?
yeah.
So, and it's treated as a joke. If a guy's being abused in the home, you're gonna be like, bro, what's wrong with you?
And that's wrong as well.
Do you know what I'm saying? And
because men should be heard out when they're getting abused or something's happened towards them. They shouldn't be laughed at. Do you know what I mean? So whereas this whole thing about women go through this, men also go through a lot.
Yeah.
So if they come across that, oh, she's psychologically abusing me or she's physically abusing me, it's like, oh, man up. But really, it's not okay. She should get treated the same as a man would get treated if he was to hit her, go prison, go trial, go everything.
Like it's like there's a lot of double standards. It's easy to say women have got the hard end of the stick,
but in some ways they don't. It goes both ways. With everything,
Like there's a lot of pressure on both male and female to be a certain version of themselves that they would necessarily be, or be a woman that has to take care of the home, that she might want to race cars for a living. You know what I'm saying? Like, so there's a lot of like assumptions that are being broken down as we evolve as a race and we evolve as a thinking organism, like that actually, you know, determines right and wrong, sets fire to things, creates lights. Do you know what I mean? All of these things in it, like as we evolve as people and humans, we learn what's right, what's wrong. There's adjustments made.
Things will get better.
Yeah.
In the long run, things will get better. Hopefully.
In my opinion,
It's not a World War III.
I think World War III already happened. I'm saying, in my opinion, I think people should like think like I want to have like a wife and children when I'm like 40 or something, not like 18 yet. Like that needs to stop. Like, I'm saying people,
Stop.
low key, innit?
I think people that tend to do bad things earlier on tend to do better later on.
Yeah, true.
If you don't know bad, that's why you get the people that get sheltered all day in their lives, and then Tuesdays they get let out to the streets and they start going, wow.
Like hit 30 and start breaking bad. Like.
Yeah, like it's a bit mad, like, because you've never been exposed to any kind of like, you don't know, you can't make that selection, so it's exciting to you as soon as you get the opportunity to make that selection. Whereas if you make those mistakes early on, you learn about people that you're with in relationships, you kind of know what works. Then you get to an age where you're mature and you can make a decision and say, okay, cool. And it's a decision, an informed decision on your partner, as opposed to just, oh, I feel this way right now, let's go. You have a kid, this person's a terrible parent, you never knew. like it's all, do you get what I'm saying? Instead of getting to that, like it's a bit better to mature first. Yeah,
mature relationships first before even like.
If you're ready.
I think it's about education as well. It's about the children being educated. So especially I think young girls being educated about being groomed, about the type of guys that are out there. Because to be honest, when a girl's from a poor background or she doesn't come across a certain way, she will get exploited, she will get preyed on by older guys, and it can mess up her whole life. And I've seen it time and time again. The girls need to be educated. They don't have dads at home. They're going to be more prone to going with guys. It's like there's a whole thing around it basically.
Listen to their guardian, listen to their parent, whoever's there. Like, at least try and conversate with them. Like, try and get advice on certain.
If they're not telling them to go and have a baby to have a cancelled flat, then listen to them. Yeah. But yeah.
Like sisters, anyone, friends, like whoever's close to you. In my opinion, I think one thing that needs to be in education is self-love and
self-respect.
For
women, I think women need to respect themselves more. Although there's this whole thing about, oh, women go through this, sorry, but I think women need to have more respect for themselves, stand up for themselves a little bit more, and stop accepting, oh, I'm a woman, I need to stay down, because that's not how it is. Sorry, what you're saying?
Yeah, just in education, they just need to teach about self-love, and they need to go back to like the realness in it instead of just like unnecessary stupidness.